I'm PJ, and I own the X Gyms, and I have researched exercise and nutrition extensively for the last 25 or so years. So the information that I usually have to present is different than what people have heard before, especially different than your traditional nutritionists and current professionals in the nutrition field and health field and fitness field, because it's all stuff based on what we've learned just in the last few years, which makes it real interesting, and it makes it a lot more useful, because we have proven, for instance, that diets don't work over the last, 100 years, but people are still doing it. And so we're looking for new solutions and new ideas. And so that's what I like to present. Today I'm going to talk about brain training. And a lot of people haven't really even heard that subject before, especially from fitness professionals, because it's really not on the radar yet. But just like anything we do at the X Gym, it's usually about 20 years ahead of its time. So we're talking about brain training today and how that can affect fitness. Not just in making it easier to get fit, but in making that permanent. So people ask, what is brain training? Well, it's teaching the brain how to literally rewire itself by atrophying old nerve pathways and then rewiring in new nerve pathways. And that makes habits easier to change along the way. So it's not a struggle to change those habits along the way. And it makes those habits permanent, makes them stick. It's really all about the nerve pathways. So this is a picture of, an illustration of nerve pathways sending signals. So this one's trying to find that one, and that one's kind of searching for that one. And they find each other, they connect. That's what nerve pathways do. Neurons, they connect to each other. They're made to connect to each other. And when you make a connection, then initially it's a nice connection, but it's weak. But every time you go through that connection and repeat that nerve pathway, it gets stronger. On the other hand, if you don't activate a nerve and you don't travel a nerve pathway, it gets weaker. And that'll be important later on as I explain that a little bit more. And this is a picture of the brain with just one thought. You can see how much is going on in the brain with just a thought. And that's just mapping out the electrical impulses between the nerves because they're all talking to each other. So it really comes down to your prefrontal cortex, or PFC. And that's the part of your brain that is in the front, and that's essentially your conscious brain. So that's what we're using right now. We're using our subconscious brain too, but we're consciously aware of our PFC. And the PFC is where you find willpower. It's also where you find forethought, so looking ahead into the future, planning, reasoning. And it's where you find your won't power, which is part of willpower, but it's how you resist certain things. And have you ever noticed that in the evening, it's harder to resist certain foods than it is in the morning? Well, that's because during the day, you've been stressed out, things have happened, you've made lots of decisions throughout the day, and your PFC has worked all day long, and it's tired, and it's full, essentially. And so, because that's where willpower is found, when it's full, these things become weaker. And this last one is simulations. So the PFC is part of the brain where we're able to run simulations, scenarios. So we can say, I wonder if such and such would happen. Well, let's play it all out in my imagination and see how that would play out, see how that would go. Well, that's the main thing that separates our brain from the rest of the animal kingdom, is because their PFCs can't do that. So they are basically just operating on things other than what you see down here: instinct, impulse, immediate gratification, stuff like that. So here's the rest of your brain. So the PFC is this little part up here, little part in the front, and there's the subconscious. So here's your conscious brain, here's your subconscious brain. Well, the subconscious brain is the boss. That's the thing that's really in charge. And that has most of the power. The cool thing about the PFC is, if you know how, you can use your PFC, your conscious brain, to program your subconscious brain. So in the subconscious brain, we got instinct, quick fix. For instance, when you're walking down the street and you smell the donuts, you walk past the donut shop, you go, wow, those smell really good. Your subconscious brain says, there's a problem here. Those smell really good, and we're not eating any. Okay? That's a problem. And so the subconscious brain says, well, instant gratification, quick fix. I know a solution for that. Let's go in there and eat some. Quick fix, immediate gratification. So the animal brain, that's what it wants to do. And the PFC is the forethought. And it says, well, it's not good for you, and we're probably going to get sick, and it's going to contribute to maybe disease, sugar, stuff like that. It's going to make me heavier, all those things. So that's the PFC saying all that stuff. And the subconscious brain says, all it can do is, hey, there's a problem here. I know the solution for right now. It doesn't have the ability to look off into the future and rationalize anything. It just wants to fix the problem right now. And there's a lot of other things. So the subconscious, we talk to the subconscious through images and emotions. Get more to that a little bit later. Fear is where we find fear in the subconscious. We find our habits that are ingrained because of the neural pathway networking. We got fight or flight. We got reflex action, just so when you want to do something really fast and not think about it, it comes from the subconscious. Memories are stored in the subconscious. The subconscious always wants to stick with the status quo because that's easiest. The job of the subconscious is to make everything easy for us. The PFC takes up a lot of energy, and if you scanned it on an MRI, it would be white hot because there's lots of stuff going on up there. The subconscious is kind of chilling back, and it's not as much energy in there and not as much stuff going on. And so it's easier to stick with established patterns and habits, which is the status quo. Dreams, the subconscious is in charge of dreams. Like I said, immediate gratification, autopilot. If you ever drive home, you get home, and you actually don't remember the drive home, it's because the boss took you home. Unconscious thoughts. So we're having unconscious thoughts right now. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on. And those unconscious thoughts actually run a lot of our conscious and unconscious decisions. So if our unconscious thoughts are fear of something happening, and then the subconscious is ruminating over that all day, unconsciously, we don't know it's ruminating over that, but we allowed it to happen because of the programming from the PFC, then it's just getting better at those negative thoughts. And then negative things start to happen because the boss takes over. And then patterns. Patterns are stored in the subconscious. So there's some good news and some bad news about the boss. The good news is the boss is a 3-year-old. So anything that works, as far as how to teach it and how to program it, anything that works on a 3-year-old is probably also going to work on your subconscious. So pictures, stories, emotions, those are all super effective tools to program new nerve pathways in your subconscious. Why is that important? Well, when you've got those nerve pathways stored in that subconscious, the boss is now operating on those new nerve pathways. But when people have the wrong nerve pathways stored in their subconscious, everything's a struggle. And they wonder, why can't I succeed? Why can't I lose weight? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? It's because the boss is programmed for not doing that, and it makes sure that it's not going to do that. Bad news is, the boss is a 3-year-old. Enough said. So we got tantrums, we got immaturity, we got instinct, we got a lot of stuff that we're trying to program, and we're going up against. This is the other reason, one of the main reasons, in fact, for the weight loss yo-yo. People lose weight, their body changes, and then all of a sudden, before they know it, it seems like they've gained all that weight back, and they're all frustrated. They do it again, using the same techniques. It seems to work temporarily, but then it all comes back. Up and down, up and down. So the reason for this is because their body changes So their body improves, their fitness improves, but their brain stays down here. Their brain didn't change. And so there's this rubber band, imagine a rubber band, between these two things. And when the body changes and improves, that's stretching. Because the brain's down here. Brain's in charge of the body. The boss is in charge of the body. The programming inside the boss is what determines where this goes. We can do this temporarily, but that rubber band's going to stretch. And then once we start to slack off a little bit, boom, back to our old habits because the boss is in charge. And it brings us right back down. Lose all that progress. But if we change both at the same time, the boss changes along with the body, we still got that same rubber band there. Great, not causing a problem. Then we can stay with our goals once we achieve our goals. And it's easier along the way because instead of stretching a rubber band along the way, it's just coming along right along with us. So that's how reprogramming the brain takes care of this weight loss yo-yo. So here's Stacy. She's a yo-yo dieter for 20 years. Her body would change, but her brain didn't change. She kept yo-yoing, kept trying the same thing over, because she didn't know any better. I mean, this is why everybody does this. You can't fault them. You do what you can do, you do what you know, and if you don't know any better, you're just going to do the same thing over and over. Here she is now. So she learned the EFT brain training method, which is found on the brain training page of the XGym site. That's a secret page, but you are all going to get access to that page at the end here. So you just write down the link, you write down the password, and that's the benefit for coming to this talk. It's also being videotaped for people that miss the talk, but they don't get that secret page and the password. It's only you. So this technique is on there. She also learned a few others. So the weight loss came easily, and she kept it off because she changed her body and her brain. So here's Pam. Pam's an emotional leader. She made up worst case scenario stories all the time. Everything was a tragedy. Everything was going to happen horribly, going to end horribly. She exaggerated her emotions. So an example of this was she was trying to have a deep conversation with her husband, and he kept looking at his phone and texting and checking things on his phone. So her response was, "I'm devastated that you're not listening to me." And words become our emotions. Was she really devastated? No, she was just miffed. Okay? Well, first I asked her, were you really devastated? Because she told me the story. And she goes, oh yes, I was completely devastated. And I go, okay, devastated means your dad just died unexpectedly. That's devastated, okay? Were you really devastated? No. Well, what was the emotion? Thought about it a while. Then she said, crushed. Okay? Were you really crushed? That means your dog just died unexpectedly. So, were you crushed or was it something else? And we kept going until it ended up being, she used the word peeved, which is kind of funny, and it actually made her laugh when she said the word. And I go, great, be peeved. But that's a completely different experience, because when you use a certain label, whether you're feeling that way or not, you're going to feel that way as soon as you labeled it that way. And so when she feels this way, she turns to food, because her subconscious brain says, here's a problem, I know how to fix it, sugar's going to fix it right away, and it will, temporarily, for 10 minutes, until you feel way worse. And then the subconscious wants more sugar, because it wants the quick fix thing. And then she just keeps gaining weight. Fear-based thinking as well. So she's always, because of the worst case scenario stories, the exaggerated emotions, she's fear-based. She watched a lot of news. She's kind of addicted to the news, which is designed to be fear-based, because then it puts you in a buying mode. So then you buy the stuff on the advertisements. So here's her, well, this is about 5 years ago. So she made up best case scenario stories instead of her worst case scenario stories. The brain has to have stories. Human beings are story-based. We're a story society. That's why we didn't have a written language for so many bazillion years, because we didn't need it. We just told stories. And our brain is still wired that way. So it's going to make up stories. And most of the stories that your brain makes up aren't going to happen, and they're probably not true. But if we're fear-based, or we're exaggerating our emotions, we're going to make up worst-case scenario stories. Well, that's just because we have to feed the brain stories. Well, if the brain has to have stories, why not give it best-case scenario stories? It's still a story. It's getting what it wants. And maybe it won't happen. So what? The worst-case scenario stories aren't going to happen either. So you might as well make up cool stories instead of horrible stories. And then you're going to stay in a better state. So she relabeled her emotions, like I described, and she stopped watching the news. Completely stopped watching the news. And I've coached a lot of people on doing this, taking this one step, to stop watching the news. And their first response is, well, then I'm not going to know stuff. And I stopped watching the news 7 years ago, and I haven't missed out on anything. If there's something really important, I have a friend or two that's going to be talking about it, and then I can judge if it's important or not. But then I've got it filtered, and I'm not watching the spin that's been projected or given or offered through the media, which is always going to be a certain way.
Nor do you have those horrible visions in your brain.
Exactly. You can't get rid of that. You can't unsee that.
Yeah.
You know, it sucks. And there's her today. So, kept it off. Feeling great, looking great. Huge difference. She actually looks younger. And this is about 10 years later. Here's Cheryl, habit girl. Very set in her ways. She's actually in pretty good shape. So, people would look at her and say, yeah, that's an after picture for a lot of people. But she wanted to be even better than that. Except she had these family patterns. So every time family would show up, which was often, she'd fall into the family patterns of, the foods that they liked. And she was a social eater. So she'd eat with friends and when she'd eat out, all that kind of stuff. And so there she is just a few months later because she atrophied her old pathways and reinforced those new pathways. And she got the buy-in from her family. So she told her family, she says, listen, I know we've got these patterns together. We've got our all favorite foods together. Because when she originally tried to get off those foods, the family would drag her back in. They weren't trying to sabotage her or be mean to her or anything or jealous. Sometimes that happens with people, but this wasn't the case. It was that they missed their patterns with her. And so then she just presented this to them. She said, hey, I want to get in better shape, but I need your help because I need your support. And then she got them to say yes. And so on a conscious and subconscious level, they all committed to helping her. They were on her team. So then when they unconsciously started to drag her back into those patterns and those foods, she would say, oh, remember we talked about this? Are you still on board for helping me? So it's always a question. It was never, hey, you promised to help me. It was, it's always a question. And then they're answering, and then when you answer the question, then your subconscious brain says, yeah, we're totally on board, because there's an emotion associated with that, and you've just given permission to be on board. And then she learned the 7-minute rule, which is another technique that's on that page. But we don't have time to go over all those. So, here's Pat, belief girl. Thought of herself as a big girl. She believed she was a big girl, and that was never going to change. Frequent cravings, negative thoughts, limiting beliefs. So, she learned to treat her thoughts only as ideas and concepts, not facts or truth. She learned that every craving, thought, or emotion is just a nerve pathway. That's all it is. It's just an electrical impulse running a certain path. And she learned that her 3-year-old boss doesn't understand negations, only images and emotions. So what I mean by negations is saying something like, I really don't want to be fat like this. So, the word don't is the negation. The subconscious doesn't actually hear the word don't. It really doesn't really hear any words. It hears images and emotions. So, when Pat is saying, I really don't want to be fat anymore, what she's doing is she's sending an image of herself fat to her subconscious, and she's hooking with that depression and emotion. So when you send an image to your subconscious hooked with some sort of emotion, it's driven really deep into that subconscious, and that nerve pathway is reinforced. So when she says, I don't want something, she's actually telling her subconscious that, yeah, she does want that. You'd only heard the image and emotion. So to turn that around, she learned that, well, what do I want to look like? What do I want to feel like? And so then she would send those messages. Well, I would want to be this way. And put it in a more positive thing. So now she's sending an image of her after picture of how she wants to look and feel to her subconscious with happiness and with good emotions. It doesn't matter what emotion. As long as an emotion of some sort is tied to that image, it's going to get there, and the subconscious is going to hear that. And as long as the positive image and emotion happens 51% of the time or more, that's the action the subconscious is going to act on. If it's 51% of the time, it'll act slower. But if it's 75% of the time, 3 out of 4 thoughts that go are positive pictures and emotions, it'll act faster. It just acts on whatever it's programmed with. Here's Les and Les, Leslie and Lester. They're pattern people. So they shared the same cravings, they love the same foods, dating, all this kind of stuff. This is great. Have all this in common. They reinforce these cravings with each other and these foods and these patterns with each other. And then they got more serious and they wanted to get married, and they're like, wow, if we're going to be with each other for the rest of our lives, we better get this under control, because they were gaining weight pretty fast. Here they go. That's their pre-wedding pictures. So they traded their ice cream cravings for broccoli cravings. They actually craved broccoli even more intense than they ever craved ice cream. And this kind of stuff is actually pretty easy to learn. And the lessons that I'm going to give you, they're 7 minutes or less, so I've designed them all. There's like 30 of them on this page. This is just one of them I'm going to show you here. And they're all 7 minutes or less. So this is a sample of what one of these lessons looks like. And it's just a YouTube link that you click on and you just watch.
Today I want to talk to you about how to make yourself like certain foods and how to make yourself not like certain foods. We all have foods that we crave, that we're just crazy about, that we know we shouldn't be eating. And we have foods that we think we should be eating, we just don't like them. The primary language of your subconscious and your memory is pictures and images. So today I want to explain to you how you can recode your brain to prefer certain foods and shy away from other foods. First, pick a food that you don't like right now, but you know you should be eating. This might be a vegetable that you know is really good for you. This might be a certain recipe that you wish you would eat more of. It doesn't really matter what it is. Just think of it now. Pause this video if you need more time to come up with that image. Now that you have this food visualized, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 how good this food looks to you in your mind's eye. Now picture this food in your mind's eye. It's probably dimly lit. It's probably faded colors. It's probably far away, maybe kind of down in the corner of your imagination. This is the way your brain codes things that you don't like. You've been doing this unconsciously all your life. You already know how to do it. Now you just understand it, so you can do it deliberately for your advantage. So first, let's turn that around. Let me show you how to code it so your brain does like it and your preferences actually change. Now, with this food pictured in your mind's eye, bring it closer. Make the color deeper. Make the colors sharper. Increase the definition. Now make it 3D. Now bring it even closer. Increase the brilliance of the colors. Increase the lighting. Now pretend you're a famous food photographer and you adjust the plate, you adjust the food so the ambient light coming in is just perfect. Your lights are adjusted so the brilliance of the colors comes out, and the definition you put on your best lens to bring it out, to bring it close to the camera, to make it the best photograph possible. Looking at that food now as a photographer, what do you appreciate about that scene? What looks great? What can you tell that the people looking at that photograph later are just going to love about that food? Bring it closer yet. right up next to you. Colors are brilliant, 3D, high def. Everything's just popping right out at you. Now the next step is to clear your mind. Think of a blank movie screen. Now say your phone number really fast. Now, rate that food again. Picture it in your mind's eye. See if there's a change on your scale of 1 to 10 of how good that food looks to you in your imagination. Was there a change? Whether or not there was, you have recoded a part of your brain about that food. The more you do this routine, the more you recode that, because this is how the brain codes stuff. So knowing how the brain codes stuff is going to help you literally change your preferences. Some of you may have learned in beginning psychology the concept of likability. One of the key ways to increase likability is to increase frequency of seeing someone. So that person you see very often, you tend to like them more. Same thing about food. When you don't like a food, you tend to avoid it. And when you see it, you go like this and you turn away. When you do like a food, you're looking at it often and long. The same principle can be applied in your imagination. You don't actually have to see the real food for this to work. You can do it in your imagination because the subconscious really doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. So when you're imagining a food, you're increasing this likability factor. And when you think of it in the ways that we've described, you're actually recoding your brain to like that food faster. Okay, now we're going to do the opposite to a food that you really like, but you'd rather not like so much. Maybe it's a junk food. Maybe it's a pasta. Maybe it's a bread. Any food you know you shouldn't be eating, you would rather just not like anymore. So now take that food, think of it in your mind's eye, and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you like that food. Also, when you picture this food, you probably picture it close up, with bright colors, with high def. Again, this is how the brain codes stuff. When you know how the brain codes stuff, you can actually use it to your advantage and recode your own brain. So take that food and push it away a little bit so it's a little bit smaller and further away. Now fade the colors a little bit. If you have trouble with this, imagine putting a piece of plexiglass in between you and the food so it's harder to see the food through that plexiglass. Now make that food image a little bit blurrier. Make it like an old TV. Now it's black and white. And now it's like an old TV that doesn't even work very well. Now move the food further away yet. Now take that food and put it down in the corner of your imagination. Now think of a blank movie screen. Now say your phone number really fast. Now, rate that food again. Picture it in your mind's eye. See if there's a change on your scale of 1 to 10 of how good that food looks to you in your imagination. And see if the preference for that food has come down at all. Whether or not it has, repeat this exercise every time you want to decrease your desire for a certain food. When you repeat the exercise for disliking a food, you may find subsequent exercises, you start with the food a little bit further away. That means it's working. Or it might be close up still, but the colors are less vivid. That means it's working too. Repeating this exercise actually changes the wiring in your brain, and it changes the pathways. It puts the myelin on the nerves, the coating like a wire on those nerves that make them more efficient, and it ignores some other pathways, and the myelin on those nerves starts to get old and starts to go away. You're done. It's that easy. I know some of this stuff seems too easy to be true, but that's the beauty of it. When you know how the brain codes stuff, and you know how the myelination process works, you can literally rewire your own brain easier than you ever thought possible.
All right. So that's a sample of like what the videos are like. Some are like that. Some are like just fireside chats and things like that. But they're all 7 minutes or less, and they teach you techniques that you can practice over and over because it's a skill. You get better with practice, and you become more effective the more you use them. So here's Tony. Chronic stress at work. Nobody knows what that's like, right? No willpower in the evenings. Work late at night. Poor sleep habits. There he is. Use meditation to reduce the stress from work. He did high intensity exercise after work, which is the most effective physical form of exercise reduction. And he refused not to work for the last 90 minutes of his day. What scientists have learned is that your subconscious is going to ruminate and repeat and go over the last 90 minutes of your day 15 times or more while you're asleep. So you watch the news, you have a fight with your spouse, your kids throw a temper tantrum, whatever, to put you in a bad state. That last 90 minutes, you're screwed, because your subconscious is going to replay that at least 15 times. The rest of your day, 2 or 3 times. So that last 90 minutes is really important. That has got to be a drama-free zone in your household, and only happy stuff for that last 90 minutes. And he also committed to an earlier bedtime, so he's getting more sleep, which is key. People think, well, you know, if I stay up, I get more done, and heck, I'm moving around more, so if I'm up for 20 hours a day, then I'm burning calories for 20 hours instead of 16. Well, it's not how the body works. The body goes in reverse if you're not getting your 7 hours, 7 to 9-ish for most people. You don't get that, and it really does work against you. So the trigger technique. This technique is, well, first of all, the trigger. We all have triggers. We know what triggers are, and that's where maybe it's family comes to town. Now all of a sudden we're eating horribly. Well, the family's your trigger. Or like the social eating issue. That's a trigger. Friends can be a trigger. Or it can be an internal trigger. It can be a memory from the past. That triggers bad eating. Or whatever the bad habit is, there's a trigger. So with this trigger technique, first step is to recognize and reflect. So is it an emotion? Is it a pattern? Maybe it's a memory, that's a pattern, that's a nerve pathway. Maybe you've repeated this in the past, common trigger. Maybe it's somebody else, maybe external. Doesn't matter, it's the trigger. So first thing is to recognize it, because once you recognize it as a trigger and call it a trigger, it loses half its power. And then, as you reflect, you're exploring the sensation of this trigger. So you're actually allowing the emotions that you feel associated with this trigger. So you're not pushing them off, or not suppressing anything. You're allowing them, and you're saying, okay, what does this feel like? Where do I feel this in my body? When does this happen? What state am I in when this trigger typically grabs hold of me? And allowing all those things to be part of you, inviting them in and feeling them, and then imagining those as like a cloud in the sky. Do clouds ever stay in one place the same way forever? No. Do emotions? No. They both dissipate over time, and they change over time. So just look at it as a cloud, and then now observe it. So you're letting it be there, and just observe it changing just like a cloud does, because they always do. And then replace it with a new trigger. So you can use that same trigger and say, okay, now I'm consciously deciding, now that I know it's a trigger, every time it happens, I'm going to do this instead of this. Or you can find a completely new trigger. Or maybe it's a trigger to make you do something that you've been putting off or procrastinating or always forget. A lot of people will forget to go exercise in the morning. And they go about their day and they get ready and everything, and they're like, oh, I showered, and they remember right after it's too late, right? They just showered, and that's when they remember. Well, it's because the subconscious was in control of that. The subconscious says, no, you say you're this way, so I'm going to make sure you don't exercise today because we want you to stay this way, because obviously you want to be this way because you keep sending me images and emotions that you want to stay this way. And so it actually made you forget to do that. So one way around that is to put your exercise shoes outside your bedroom door. So well, not so you trip over them, but so you see them and you have to walk around them, and then that triggers your subconscious, even though it's trying to make you forget to do that habit, it triggers you to do that habit. That can be a trigger as well. So your thoughts really are who you are and who you will become. If you change your thoughts, a thought is just a nerve pathway. Change your thoughts, change your nerve pathways, change your habits. That's what a nerve pathway is. It's a pattern. Change your habits, change your life. Earl Nightingale, arguably the most successful self-help author of all time, said, "We become what we think about." Ralph Waldo Emerson, "We become what we think about all day long." But this is not new. This is not a new concept. I mean, this has been around since the beginning of time. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. King Solomon, 1000 BC, Proverbs. So this really is about thinking a certain way and wiring certain pathways. However, you have to be careful what you think about. Remember Brooke Shields, Andre Agassi? Well, Brooke Shields wanted to get in better shape with her legs. Obviously her arms look awesome, but apparently her legs aren't that good. And so she said, "I want Steffi Graf's legs." And so she put the picture up on her fridge so she'd see it every day. And she talked about it all day. Can't wait to get Steffi Graf's legs. I'm working really hard to get Steffi Graf's legs. I want Steffi Graf's legs. Well, Agassi's walking around. He shares that fridge. He hears her talking about it. He sees the picture. He wants Steffi Graf's legs. He ended up getting Steffi Graf's legs. So it's really about you and about others. We're only as good as our peer group. So when you're working with the people in your home, get them on board because they're your peer group. You can influence them. They can help you. So here is the secret page access for all these brain training lessons. And this is going to be blurred out for the people watching the video. So they're like, right now they're going, "Oh." Okay, so there's the website. And pretty easy to remember too. And then the secret password. It'd be hard to crack this one, okay? Yeah. It's a tough one, huh? It's going to ask you for the password. Type that in. But remember, if you tell anybody about this webpage and give them the password, you will have to kill them. This is top secret. You all know how to kill people, right? So when you're going through these brain training lessons, it kind of gives you an idea of what it's about. You know, it explains it just with a sentence. So before you watch it, you kind of see. So when you think, "Oh gosh, I'm really having this struggle," go to this page and peruse through the lessons and see if one sounds like what you're experiencing. And try certain techniques and see which ones resonate with you first. And then stick with those. And then if you try other ones and they don't really resonate, don't really click, then don't do them for now. But when you get really good at the other ones and you need more, go back to those other ones. Because maybe your brain has been rewired enough so they do make sense now. Or they'll make sense as you practice them and build them as a skill. Because practicing them often builds this skill. And then they become more effective. So now we've got our fitness chocolate time here. And so here's the ingredients in case anybody has allergies or food intolerances or anything. And this recipe is on the XGym recipe page. So you can make this yourself at home. But this was a few years in the making to coming up with this formula. And it is a ketogenic recipe. So it actually helps you burn fat. And it builds muscle because there's protein in there from grass-fed cows. So it's very clean, organic. And in some, it's almonds, or in some, I didn't put it on here because I made the almond version last minute, but half the side of that is almond bark, and then the other side is without almonds. Some of them have chia seeds, which is another superfood. Chocolate is a superfood. Cacao is a superfood. But when you buy it in a store, it's been processed and refined, and all the good stuff has been processed out of it. so there's none left anymore. If you get really dark chocolate that's organic from a really good source, like Theo's, they're awesome. The only problem is they have sugar. This doesn't. So this is like Theo's, except the sugar's taken out, and it's even less processed. So this is sweetened with erythritol and stevia. It's not a sugar substitute, and it's not an artificial sweetener. But they can't be processed by the body in such a way that it raises your blood sugar or insulin. And then the coconut oil is what makes it ketogenic and makes it a fat-burning food. So this is actually a weight loss food without tasting like a diet food. And here's the macronutrients on this. So we got almost 3 grams of fat, which is fat-burning fat, per piece, average piece. Carbs, after you take out the fiber, which is about 0.5 gram per piece net, and that's very slow carbs, which will not spike your blood sugar or insulin. And the protein is over 2 grams per piece, which is unheard of for chocolate. You'd never find that in any kind of chocolate out there. So it makes it more metabolically active as well. Again, you can make this yourself. It takes me 9 minutes, but anyone else, even the first time, about 15 minutes. Just follow directions. And then my contact info, email there. I'm at the Alki and Kirkland X gyms, or here in this gym. We got a little group going on Mondays and Thursdays at 2:15. It's kind of fun. So you're welcome to.
You guys will all be doing it.
Yeah.
At 2:15, you said?
Yeah, every Monday and Thursday. That's a fun little group. And there's other options too, even one-on-one stuff. And then my book, Cracking Your Calorie Code. I wrote that back in
I'm just
08.
gonna put a plug in for you. I have that book and the workbook. It is awesome, awesome, awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It
Thanks.
really is. It's easy to read. It's easy to understand. It's well laid out. It's simple, and you're all going to know. He introduces some new ideas and new techniques, but the basis of it is common sense that will totally resonate.
Cool.
And it's placed in such a positive structure that it's actually uplifting to read. So
Awesome.
it's all positive.
Thanks. I'll write your check when we're done. and that book is still 80% right. So 20% of it I've changed in what I say since 2008 because new research, new science has come out, better stuff now. It's still good. Even the 20% it's wrong is still good. But now this stuff is great. So my next book is going to be along the lines of a chocolate diet. Because that's one of the recipes. There's about 20 others that I have developed along with my nephew Ryan, who's amazing with that kind of stuff. And so that's the next book is coming out, but probably not till end of the year. And then there's the DVD, the workout thing there. So question time. And I know you're all super busy. It's 12:48 right now. You were told an hour. So if anybody has to sneak out, don't feel bad. Because I know you're busy, I know you got to get back to work and stuff, so no problem with that. But I'm sure you have some questions. So that's what this time is for. And there's seconds. Where's the chocolate? Can keep going. Yeah, just keep passing around. If people want more, go for it. It'll just make you thinner if you eat more. So.
Do you train in the gym? You're a trainer?
Yes. So I own the Alki and the Kirkland X gyms. And I don't do a whole lot of training at the gyms anymore, but I've got 5 trainers at each that do great work. And here, I'm still doing the training here, just to kind of get the group going and until it's ready to pass off to a trainer. But that's the idea.
What days is it? I know somebody told me when you first spoke, and I wrote it down, and then I just kept resisting going. So
Hey.
when is there training in the gym here?
Mondays and Thursdays at 2:15 right now. And if there was enough interest in another time with another group, we could certainly do that too. So, like if you have some friends at work or some other people in the building that want to train with you, then that's certainly an option.
And I will tell you start out about 30 minutes to kind of get used to everything, and then it really boils down to 21 minutes. And it is the most effective 21 minutes. Am I not kidding, Joyce? Am I kidding?
Absolutely.
It is the most effective 21 minutes of exercise. You're not sore, and you immediately see results. And you also are amazed at your progress, because you go to exhaustion with, your muscle fatigue, I should say. You just can't go anymore. And you've done, 7, because you go really slow. And then 2 weeks later, you're doing 11 or you're doing 12. It's like time to up the weight because you, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I cannot.
Thanks.
And it's fun.
And even if it's not fun, it's just 21 minutes.
All those examples you had up there, the pattern people and the all kind. Mine is out and out laziness on cooking. I don't like to cook.
Yeah.
So I find the easiest thing to cook, which is usually the worst thing you could get.
Yeah.
Because it's prepackaged and
Yeah.
it's ready to go.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you?
Gosh, that's a huge. I hear that all the time, and we've really gotten away from cooking.
Yeah.
I remember in the last talk we talked about how 50 years ago we cooked our food. We spent time in the kitchen, but then the processed food revolution took over, and now we've got everything packaged, ready to go, and just stick it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and immediate gratification. So our subconscious brain loves that stuff because it gets it right now. And we're hungry, problem, TV dinner, solution, microwave. So it's just a pattern. It's moved us out of the kitchen over time. We need to get back in the kitchen. And at first, it's just forcing ourselves just to do it. And it's just saying, okay, I can either stay unhealthy and not make any progress, or I can just suck it up and just get back in the kitchen. 50 years ago, skinny people were all over the place. It's because we were in our kitchens and way less processed foods. We were making real foods. The food that we brought home had one ingredient because it was that food.
And Mom rationed the portions too.
Yeah. But I also remember last time I mentioned, because I asked you if you like music, if you like dancing.
Oh, yeah.
So you put on your headphones and you dance your way through cooking dinner. And now you're doing something, so you're merging two activities.
No, I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
But I have
Liking
a
leads is cooking. I just
Yeah.
have a quick little tip too that I accidentally found through surfing on the TV one day, and it's for those because I'm like you. It's like, oh God, I don't want to cook anymore. It's called the New Wave oven, and it's infrared cooking.
Oh yeah, I have one of
And they're a
those.
tabletop deal, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $100. You can make 3 payments if you want. And you can put a frozen steak, a frozen salmon fillet, anything frozen in there. And it'll completely cook it in like 11 minutes.
Yeah,
What's it called?
it's pretty remarkable.
New Wave. And you can cook it, so you say, okay, oh, I forgot to, I know salmon's good for me, I forgot to eat the salmon out of the fridge. You can cook salmon, red potatoes, asparagus, all at once. And you're going to transfer the flavors across. That you can cook chicken breast in, I think it's less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's great, and it's not a microwave because microwaves
It's not a microwave, and
aren't.
it goes
good.
from the inside out, and
Yeah.
your steaks are absolutely perfect.
Mhm.
And the cleanup is whoosh whoosh you're done. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so easy.
Yeah, they
Really,
should.
I couldn't believe I impulsively bought it. Now I'm so
Yeah.
glad it's all I use,
Yeah,
pretty much.
you get another check from New Wave.
No, I don't.
You can buy it on Amazon.
You can buy it on Amazon, and you can really me. Once you buy it, you're going to want to give it to your child or your best friend, and sometimes get them 2 for 1.
My daughter, my friend just got one from a friend, and she hasn't used it yet, so I'm gonna have to call her. She's on vacation, but when
Yeah.
she gets back, let's try it.
She will.
Bingo,
love
yeah.
it.
She's the next one.
Yeah,
It's
that's a
really,
great
really
tip.
easy.
Good idea. Yeah.
And you can cook a whole 14-pound turkey in the Jew for like, I don't know how many, couple hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't use microwave to cook. I'll use it occasionally to reheat for someone else. But I won't even. You know what microwaves are awesome for? Sanitizing sponges. Yeah.
How long do you stand? 15 seconds, is that right?
At least. I usually go about 30 seconds.
Okay.
I mean, I put it with a little bit of water on a plate, and it's boiling and steaming and everything when it's done.
That's true, that's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, what's your philosophy on number of days working out per week, and do you recommend no rest day or what?
Yeah, it is a good question, and it really depends. So you want to gauge your soreness, and if you're sore, that means don't exercise that muscle that day. Wait until it's not sore, and then you can work it out. So that's one way to do it. But it also depends on what kind of exercise you're doing. So if you're doing something really aggressive like CrossFit, for instance, where you're doing ballistic, heavy weights, then you're going to have to deal with some micro tears and things like that, which takes more time. So you'd want to do that, once or twice a week kind of thing, if you're really going for it. If you're doing training like XGym, twice a week is optimal. And 3 times a week isn't actually damaging, but your results diminish a little bit. So that's why we landed on twice a week. So yeah, the optimal recovery to work is twice a week. But then there's people doing cardio in between the strength sessions. So the whole cardio thing is based on your goals. Half the XGym members do 0 cardio. They're just not interested. They're getting cardio from the XGym workout, enough for what their goals are, to go on hikes and to be active. But they're not athletes, they're not competing with anything. And so the other ones that are athletes, they will do cardio. And we have special machines at XGym, like a Jacob's ladder, and VersaClimber, rope machine, incline trainer, stuff like that you don't see in normal gyms, to help them cut down on their time required for cardio. I, for instance, never do more than 10 minutes of cardio at a time, and it's 4 or 5 times a week. So, and that's all the cardio I need. And my sport of choice is tower running. So it's running up the inside stairwells of skyscrapers. There's and there's like 100 races in this country. They're all over the place. There's 3 here in Seattle even. And I'm ranked 10th in the nation.
Wow.
And it's with less than an hour a week of exercise. So it's how you do it that's important too.
It's hard to make yourself limit the cardio though. I mean, if you're used to doing an hour, it's really
Yeah.
hard to think, I can only do 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
Just what
look
you're
up
used to.
look up Tabata protocol. You may know about Tabata. TABATA
Okay.
protocol.com. Tabataprotocol.com. And stick that in the middle of your workout, and that'll cut your time down and increase your effectiveness. Because
We've been doing that in spin classes and it's
Tabata.
killer.
Yeah, the interval stuff. Your body can't adapt to interval training because it's maximal training. It doesn't know how to adapt to maximal training. It has to keep improving. But submaximal training, it can adapt to that. You can say, well, I've done this before. I'm really good at this. I'm really efficient. So we're just going to plateau. And then you're not getting you're jogging or whatever the submaximal activity is for an hour every single day and never getting anywhere. And that's why the body's adapted completely. So stick that in there, something that it can't adapt to, and then that'll help.
Yay, PJ.